Good morning, everyone, and happy that you join us on Learn Live TV. My name is Martina Grom. I'm happy to co-present today with Ståle, which has a very early morning today because he joins from Orlando. So good morning.
Yes, I did. Good morning.
So what we are doing here now is we have a 4-part Learn Live series. And we want to learn with you together, get started with managing Microsoft Teams. And today we have our second session. It's around planning and deploy Microsoft Teams. And you can go through the modules together with us live, where we explain things, discuss things, ask additional questions, get you through the knowledge and help us and you to get a good training experience. So you can also ask questions live. Go to ak.ms Learn Live TV. And my name is Martina Grom. I'm joining today from Vienna. I'm an MVP and the Microsoft RD, and hope you enjoy the show. We have also, as I mentioned already, we have 2 moderators with us. One is Merethe, and the other is Miguel. Those both are MVPs as well, and they will answer all your questions. And please also say hi to them, because they're waiting for you, they're waiting for your questions, and we are waiting for your questions too. And if we look at the Learn module, what we do today is planning and deploy Microsoft Teams. And it's very easy to join the live session and learn with us throughout the whole module. Simply scan the barcode and go into the module, and then we will follow up with questions and so on. And that means handing over to you.
Yes, so the objectives for today, the topics we're going to cover is describing the different admin roles, describing the admin tools you have at your disposal to manage and deploy your platform, and planning for rollout and adoption. And then we're going to end with licensing and Teams clients. And again, if you have any questions, go into live chat, say hi. Where are you from? Where are you joining us from today? And Merethe and Miguel will answer your questions and maybe even bubble up some questions to us as well. And then back to you, Martina.
Yeah, to give you the first introduction, what we do today is Microsoft Teams focuses considerable attention on self-service. There are still some essential management and implementation tasks that must be completed to maximize a deployment's effectiveness. So, for example, even when implementing self-service features, some policies that you create to guide users are important and should be planned with appropriate diligence. So it should be prepared upfront, and we should go through that, and we see them in the Teams admin portal. In this module, you will learn about rollout paths to deploy Teams, user adoption and licensing. We will deploy the Microsoft Teams client together. By the end of the module, you should have insights into the different clients that can work with Teams content, regardless if it's on a mobile device, if it's on your PC, on your Linux device, on your Mac OS system. And you will also learn how to interpret Microsoft 365 and Teams usage reports. So you see what we will have here, and we will be able to describe the different team admin roles, which are kind of important if we go least privilege. Then we will also go through available admin tools to manage Microsoft Teams, and we are planning our rollout and adoption strategy. And then we go into required licensing for our teams. And we see how we go into Teams admin roles. So first of all, there are designated team admin roles. So you can have several administrative roles which have full access to all of the team service settings, such as the global administrator, who can literally manage everything within Microsoft 365. And then we have Teams admins. Other roles can provide access to certain parts of Microsoft Teams to perform recurring tasks. So troubleshooting call quality problems, manage telephony settings, and so on. So the different admin roles within Microsoft Teams is the team administrator role. Then we have a dedicated Teams device administrator who can manage that. We are going through the roles itself. It's communication administrator, and we also have our support engineers, and they are also split into two roles. It's like communication and engineer and communication specialists. So you see here, we have a couple of roles which are in here. And what we will go through here is we have a table where we see the different roles and the task that each role can perform. So you will see what permissions a role has and what he can do here and what you are able to do in PowerShell. So I'm not going through the whole table because you can read them online and you can also select the different roles. But what I wanted to highlight here is if we go into Teams Admin Center and we have different roles, you see that the Teams administrator can manage almost everything. And also think about go always least privilege, because least privilege means you only have the access rights you need to have here. And if we go here in the admin roles and just going through the other roles we have here, we will see how the device administrator looks like and the communication administrator looks like. So Ståle, what do you think about the whole roles here?
Yeah, I definitely agree on least privilege, and we see that a lot in many organizations where they have multiple people administering and maybe deploying Microsoft Teams. Also, what we're seeing with the device administrator is that that may be the role that you delegate to AV people or those managing phones for you, the hardware on site, if you have like an on-site service team. So the device administrator only sees devices in the Teams admin center. So you see the IP phones, the Teams displays, the MTR on Android, MTR on Windows, and so on and so forth. And even the Teams panels, those front of room panels, because they are based on Android. From there, you can update the software, you can download some logs and all that. So the device administrators see that, but they do not see call quality. They do not see users, so they only see the devices tab. So if you want them to troubleshoot like call quality issues as well, they need additional roles. Such an additional role is the Teams communication administrator. The Teams communication administrator is for managing meetings and telephony or voice features within Microsoft Teams. So if you have like a telephony team that is in a larger deployment, you have session border controllers, you may have different types of calling features, you can delegate this role to these people. And I've seen that you can even assign phone numbers to users, but there's one useful thing you cannot do as a communication administrator, and that is actually enterprise voice enable a user. You need to have elevated rights for that, user administrator and Teams service administrator. So these two roles are great to combine with the Teams communication support engineer or the support specialist, especially the device role, because the communication administrator can see the call quality dashboard and call analytics, but the device administrator cannot. So these roles are great for first line or second line support, where you want them to be able to go into call quality dashboard and see what's happening in our environment, what's the general quality like today or has been this week. You can even drill down into sites and buildings and so on. So if you have a support case, a user saying, hey, I have terrible audio today, then you can see, is it that like a one-time thing, or is it something happening within our environment? And then they can go and troubleshoot individual calls. So then you may ask, what's the difference between the communication support engineer and the support specialist? Well, the difference is that the engineer has access to personal identifiable information, which means they can drill down on individual calls for individual users and search for those, and the specialist does not. So the specialist only looks at trending information, general information, and the engineer can go in and troubleshoot specific calls.
So, for instance, if I have problem with my call quality today, the role which looks into my issue, my specific issues, is then the support engineer, correct?
Yes. Yeah, if you assign that to first line support, or I think maybe second line, and then maybe first line can have the support specialist. In that way, you don't give away too much information when you have those support tiers.
Okay, and you can see dedicated, it was Martina's headset, it was the internet bandwidth, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, great!
And you were in the Wi-Fi, and the signal strength was not good. So then it was like a fluke. It was you and not the environment. But again, you can see
cloud.
that. Not the cloud, right? Yeah.
Not the cloud, yeah, as always. Okay. And on the next slide.
Yeah. So yeah, you can go through this one, and I can take the next one, Martina.
Yeah. So what we have here is you can assign those admin roles in the Microsoft Admin Center. So we have a lot of portals within Microsoft 365 to administer roles. And one of the portals is the Microsoft Admin Center. So here you can assign Teams admin roles. And you can go in the admin center and you have a global admin account. And with the global admin account, you go to users, select active users, and then you assign the roles. Like it's shown here in the next slide in a little demo here. So you see here, I'm in the Teams admin center. I go to an active user, and then I can assign him a specific admin role. And it's always a good recommendation to use those specific admin roles and only give people the admin roles they really need to have. And back to your slides.
Yeah, so what I've learned though is that Teams and Microsoft 365 runs on Azure Active Directory. So you can actually do the exact same thing using portalazure.com. And for me, that's actually the preferred way to do it, because there you can do more advanced assignments as well. So it's a good habit to go in there and manage licensing and users across your entire Microsoft 365, or even you have Dynamics 365, you have other services and admin roles and administrators that manage different set of features. So by going with a global administrator, again, going to Azure Active Directory users, there you can assign role either to groups or individuals. And there you can find the same roles as you do in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So let me show you what that looks like. So by going to portalazure.com, you find the Azure Active Directory. And there is one more thing though, and a big recommendation I would say is that you buy the Azure Active Directory P2 license for your administrators, because then you can also do privileged identity management, PIM. And the reason for that is that you don't want everyone to be enabled with Global Administrator or enabled with Teams Administrator or Communications Administrator all the time, that they need to elevate themselves when they actually need the rights. So what that looks like is you go to Azure Active Directory, and the first thing you will see is that what kind of license you have available. And again, you don't have to buy this license for all the users, just your admin users, for instance, and it's highly recommended. And then you go to users, and you find the users you want to use. Here I have my admin user, and I can go to assigned roles and click on add assignments. Here you will see all the assigned roles this user has. And by clicking on add assignment, here you can then search for teams. You will find all the different teams roles. And for instance, here we do Teams Communication Administrator. And then you have two options when you have this P2 license. Is it eligible or is it active? Eligible means that you can elevate yourself. And active means that it's always active. You're always a global administrator. You're always a Teams Communications Administrator. You can also say here how long they should have this role. Moving on. Then when we have assigned the role, we can see that the user has the role as eligible assignments. We can even see what kind of active assignments they have. But the important thing here, I would say, is why you would like to have that elevation is because then you have audit logs saying that you were elevated during the time of the outage. So if people know that you had the access and you maybe were logged in and so on, it's easier to pinpoint maybe who was logged on at that time. So that's why you want to have the elevation, so that you have logging of what's happening when. So this is highly recommended. It's not a requirement, of course. You can either do it through the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, portalasure.com, or use the P2 licenses and even give them eligible access.
This is also kind of a pro tip. Always use PIM for your admin roles.
Yes.
So this is I think this is definitely a best practice recommendation to go that way for your administrators, because you're reducing risk with PIM a lot.
Yes. So yeah, don't run around being a global admin all the time. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And also, what do you think? Is it a dedicated admin account or is it your normal work account?
Yeah, the answer there is a cloud-only dedicated admin account for sure. So even though you have a hybrid identity, you should have a separate admin account on premises and then a cloud admin account, and they should not be connected. So you may actually end up having 3 accounts, one for your daily work where you write your documentation, where you are in Teams and so on. That's just a regular user that you use everywhere. Then you have your cloud admin account, and then your on-prem Active Directory admin account. That's the best practices.
Mm. And also think about adding MFA to every single account which connects to Microsoft 365.
Please do that. Thank you.
MFA all the time.
So we have one more way to administer this, Martina, or assign the roles.
Yes, another option is that you can assign admin roles with PowerShell as well. So that means if you want to automate tasks, or you have already automated a lot of your daily work with PowerShell, you can do that very easy with PowerShell. And we put you an example here where you see, okay, I'm assigning team service administrator roles to a person in my environment and set the role for that person. Okay, so the next point would be we have our admin roles and then we have our management tools. And management tools are quite the same importance like admin roles and identities. So think from a perspective, now I have my assigned roles, but where do I manage that? So we can use for basic tasks such as creating, editing team setting, adding or removing members, adding, removing, configuring apps. This can be done by your users and the owners of the teams by themselves. So always consider to have a part of self-service in here. But on the other side, we have administrative tasks that need to be performed with administrative roles through the Teams Admin Center or the Teams PowerShell module, or even you can use Microsoft Graph API if you want to automate it or build it in one of your processes which are present in your organization. So the Admin Center is available from the Microsoft 365 Admin Center or by navigating to the web address admin.teams.microsoft.com. And then you can sign in here, and it provides a dashboard that shows the Teams usage, user activity in an organization, and full administrative capabilities required to configure all aspects of Teams in a tenant. So if you have dedicated roles and they are only responsible for Teams and your phone system, they do not need to have access to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, for instance. They are just going directly into Teams Admin Center. And the Admin Center enables your administrators to manage and create teams, to create Teams policies, manage phone devices, telephone numbers, locations, emergency addresses, and so on. So you see a lot of capabilities here, what you can do here. You can also manage live event settings. You can add messaging policies, Teams app settings, and so on. So everything which comes to the Teams client in the end or gives your users self-service capabilities can be configured in the Teams Admin Center. And if we take a look at it, how it looks like, here you see, we see here a dashboard where we can see our users, our groups, and so on. And you have a navigation bar on the left, which is depending on your current admin role, where you see specific menu items or not. So for instance, you see here all your users, all your teams, and you have a really good overview dashboard, how you can do that and how you can look at that. And then again, back to you with PowerShell.
Yes, you can manage teams with PowerShell as well. And for me, I try to especially when I deploy something, I try to do it through PowerShell, because then it's like documented with code. And it's very easy to install the Teams module, install module name Microsoft Teams, then you would download that from PowerShell Gallery. And if you add force as well, it would overwrite your current version of the Teams PowerShell module. For instance, if you just want the latest one, and I recommend using the latest one as often as you can, but also make sure that you have a backup, because sometimes some new features get introduced or things changes throughout the modules, especially now around some telephony capabilities. They are still being like rolled into the Teams module. So when you're connecting, you just use Connect Microsoft Teams. My recommendation today is to use Connect Microsoft Teams and don't specify account ID as I shown here. And the reason for that is today, when you're specifying account ID and $user, or even you use other methods of authenticating into the module, you won't actually authenticate into the Sky for Business components, the telephony components today. So, but when you use Connect Microsoft Teams, you get all the PowerShell modules. You can manage all aspects of Microsoft Teams, including the Sky for Business specific PowerShell command. So everything now is rolled into the Microsoft Teams PowerShell module. So if you run get command Microsoft Teams, then you will see all the different settings you have. You have disable and enable and get team and so on. This is more and more features are being added as soon as possible. But there are sometimes things you need to do through the admin center that you cannot do through the PowerShell module. But Microsoft is either giving access to that through the PowerShell module or via the Graph API. Just a note here again that you don't need to have the Sky for Business PowerShell module anymore. Everything now is baked into the Teams PowerShell module. But I mentioned Graph API, Martina.
Yeah, and just to show you all the commandlets which are available through Microsoft Teams PowerShell, just to give you a small overview about that. We have also the Teams Graph API, and Teams provides management capabilities through Microsoft Graph, where team is represented by a group resource. So first of all, look at the information which is provided here, and Graph API, it can be used for various tasks. So you can manage your team settings, you can manage members, you can manage resources. And the primary use of Graph API is for automation capabilities, because Graph API's calls can be embedded into tab pages, easily called from other sources. And even if you have your own management system, you can go through Graph API and automate your task or build your own solution to manage teams. So there are endless capabilities with Microsoft Graph. And if there is one single tip I would recommend you is go and look into Microsoft Graph API capabilities, because they are so powerful and so helpful in our day-to-day work. So before we continue, we have also our first question online from Twitch. And this is back to the identities. So the question was, does identities use Active Directory as well? So, or is it not implemented if you use cloud-based identities? So, Ståle.
Yes. And this is from Voske on Twitch. We are streaming on Twitch. We're streaming on multiple platforms. And if you are having like a cloud-only administrator, then there is no integration with your on-prem Active Directory. So they're totally separated. And there is no synchronization. The ID, account ID, is not hybrid, and it's a pure online admin account, if I understood the question correct.
Yeah, and I think it's just a difference between on-premises accounts and cloud accounts. And if you have synchronization enabled, you can use your Active Directory account and assign them the admin roles as well, if you want that.
If you want
to. And I think if you want to. Again, a pro tip around cloud identities: if you're working with a break glass account, always use a cloud-based account for that.
Yes, do that.
Do that.
In case your hybrid breaks, then your admin accounts break as well.
Exactly. So, and if we look at management through Teams clients, so what do you think about that, Ståle?
Yeah, so there is settings you can do when deploying Teams, and there are settings you can do when you have the team and are an owner of the team. So you do have an owner of Teams. You don't have like admin rights throughout the whole solution, but you have owner rights for your team specifically. So by going into settings of the team, and you go into settings again in the team, you can see that you have the ability to change the team picture, member permissions, guest permissions, and so on. Some of these can be controlled through policies. Some of these can be controlled through governance, which you're going to talk about in a later session. And some of these can be controlled through the settings and PowerShell settings when you're setting this up, and even through sensitivity labels, especially like if you're able to add guests or not, and so on. So here are some of the Teams admin settings that you can do. So this means that when you are an owner, and as we mentioned in the previous show, that you should always be 2 owners, so you don't have any ownerless teams. Then you can control what's available within the team. You can say also who can mention what within the team. For instance, a good practice is not to enable everyone to mention the team by name, I've tried to mention channels instead. You can control this as an owner, and you can control what kind of connectors are available and manage join requests if it's a private team, and so on. You can renew the team if you use expiration policy. That's the owners that get asked, do you want to keep your team because you've been inactive for some time, or something like that. You can even configure channel moderation as an owner, and you can archive and restore team as well. So everything of that kind of thing is controlled by the owner. Typically, what we also see is that it's only the owner that may be able to add new channels, for instance. That's also something an owner can change if they want to.
Yeah,
Any
and
other
also,
thoughts here, Martina?
yeah, what I think, Teams administration, so not the Teams admin center and not the global admin and not the Microsoft 365 admin center. So Teams administration really brings back ownership and responsibility to the users itself. So if you're the owner of a team, you're responsible for the content in there, for the members, for channels, and so on. So, and you can manage it by yourself. You do not need IT for doing that. Also, very important is you can, for instance, archive a team. So consider you had a project team and you worked on a project, and after 6 months, the project is over and you do not need the team any longer. Then you can simply archive the team by yourself without IT, without the support of IT. And I really love that, because people really are creating their own teams, adding apps, adding tabs, adding channels, and they do that everything without IT. And they do not need support calls for doing that.
So we have another question from Twitch. From Full Snabel, and the question is, I want to add a simple alias from, say, @support to point to a specific person within a team. And can you do that, Martina? And can an owner create something like that within a team?
Yeah, I'm currently not sure if I understand the question correctly. So an alias is for me always an email alias.
Yes. But I was
So
thinking more of a tag, for
topic.
instance.
Yeah, a tag, yeah.
Yeah.
So there are two answers. So an alias address can be done to any team or to a person within their Exchange management capabilities. But if you tag a person within a team, you can tag a group of people. So for instance, if we have a team together and there are some support engineers in there within the team, you can simply tag those people and give them the name support engineers. And then you can mention those persons as well in your team's channels, which is a very comfortable way to do.
Yes, we do that a lot, actually, especially in larger teams, as you say, to mention or be able to tag a subset of people the same way. And that's something an owner can set up and create. And tags, remember, is per team only. So you cannot create like a global tag, because the person that are part of that tag needs to be a member of the team. But I do think you get some ability to do that through Graph API now as well, or is that on the roadmap still?
I think you can do it through Graph as well. And I was just thinking about a tag, an all company tag.
Yeah, for instance. So hopefully we understand your question correct. And yes, you can do that through tag. And then, but if it's an alias, of course, then it's an email address. And if it's the alias for the team, that addresses the whole team. So that I don't think that solves the problem. The tags do. Moving on. What more can you do, Martina?
So if we go in Teams Azure Active Directory as a directory service, you can view, manage your organization's existing groups members using Azure Active Directory. And this is also something you have to decide what portal you are more comfortable with. So I see a lot of IT pros who use Azure Active Directory all the time, and they go through portalazure.com. And then if you are more in the Microsoft 365 side, you go into the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, because there you can also set up team-wide settings. And that means you can use external apps for Microsoft Teams, you can allow side loading of external apps, or you can also enable new external apps by default. And this is depending on your governance and your settings. And that's also a sneak preview on next week, where we will discuss governance in much more detail like we do today. And then we have the Defender portal and the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. So what we are going in here, there is in the Defender portal or in the Compliance Center, those two portals, they are designed to have other selected capabilities available. So for instance, if you have compliance requirements on your teams like sensitivity labels, information governance, information protection, and so on, the compliance persons in your organization are managing that through the Compliance Center. It's always, Microsoft follows a way of role-based access. So that means if you're a security person, you go into securitymicrosoft.com. If you're a compliance person, you go into compliancemicrosoft.com, and you see all your management capabilities in here. And also, don't forget, you need to have assigned the specific roles in here. So if you, for instance, are a Teams administrator and you also need to manage compliance administrative tasks, you also need the specific roles for that portal. And the same is true for the Microsoft 365 Defender portal. And I like that a lot, because all your Defender capabilities are now collected within the Security Center, and you see everything in here, and you can include your team's capabilities as well. So our first knowledge check for today. Check your knowledge in the chat. So I'm reading the question, and think about, we discussed that briefly together with Ståle, that we see Deborah is the team owner of the annual event team. The event just finished, so Deborah wants to archive the annual event team now and make sure the files in the annual event team are read-only for team members. So they can still access the team, but they can't add files in here and so on. But for archiving capabilities, they need to access the site as well. So what should Deborah do with minimal effort? First of all, she opens a ticket and contacts team administrator for help. The second option is, she is the owner of the team, so she can archive the team from her Teams client directly. And the third option was, because she wants to set everything read-only, specifically the files in there which are stored in SharePoint, she contacts the SharePoint administrator for help. So what's your best guess here?
I'm thinking you can do everything. You can contact the Teams administrator for help. They can do that for you. You can contact the SharePoint to manipulate your files in the SharePoint library. And you can even archive the team from team client. So all of these are correct questions. But the question then is, what can you do as an owner, and what can you do as a least privilege? So
yeah. And also we talked a lot about self-service, so minimal effort. You don't need IT anymore for doing that. So my guess would be option B. Let's check. Yes, I'm right. Great.
Yeah, no, I definitely, that's how to do it. And what are your thoughts, Martina, on like going into the SharePoint site, which is part of the team, and start like manipulating sharing capabilities, maybe individual on files, or start doing things in the back end on SharePoint? What's your thoughts on that?
So what I try to advise anyone I work with within Microsoft Teams is you have a team owner, a team member, and team guests, and stick to that roles, even if you go into SharePoint, because if you start doing specific permissions in SharePoint, you're breaking permissions, and it might get unexpected results for your users that they say, okay, it's read only here, but in Teams I see it other way around, or I'm missing files or anything else. So I would really recommend, if it's a team connected SharePoint site, stick to the responsibilities and the roles which are available within Microsoft Teams. It makes your life so much easier, I promise.
I agree.
And now to our next topic, which is the Teams rollout in here. So when you're deploying Microsoft Teams, you should create a rollout path that describes the high-level steps required to deploy Teams to your organization. So those rollout paths typically provide the macro view of the deployment process. We have a technical side and so on. So my recommendation would be that we roll out Teams in stages, workload by workload, so that your organization is ready. You don't have to wait until you have completed one step before you move to the next. So it's kind of an ongoing agile deployment process here. Also, some organizations want to roll out all Teams features at once, while others may prefer a phased approach. And the phased approach could include, okay, we only need chat capabilities. We do not have Teams access right now in the beginning. So there are different flavors for for rollout planning here. And also, if we go through the stages, first of them is get started. So the starting point for any Teams deployment begins with familiarize yourself and your stakeholders with the new collaboration and communications client. So get in touch with them, talk about the project, bring some executive sponsorship with you, that you can start with a rollout. And then go into chat, Teams, channels, and apps. So that helps you drive user adoption of Teams. Also look at a quick win in the deployment process. So most organizations already use chat applications and services. The quickest win is typical integrating those persistent chat capabilities and apps into Teams, because people are used to using chat. They know it, they like it, and they are already used to it. And it's very easy for them to switch into the Teams client. So the integration lets users continue using the legacy solutions they're comfortable with. And this avoids also a disruption to their daily activities. So it's an easy switch for them and a quick win for you. And then look into meetings and conferencing. So implement meetings and conferencing in a Teams deployment is typically done later in the rollout process. So the success of adopting meetings and conferences in Teams make it easier to deploy the next capability, and this is voice, your favorite topic. So our last step in a planned Teams rollout is that we have a full voice integration. So adding PSTN calling into Teams. So no phones anymore. You are just reaching out to Ståle or to Martina, no matter what phone number she has or he has.
Yeah.
And also,
and I want to comment on that as well, because I agree on this this phased rollout. At the same time, if you're doing a voice project, for instance, or doing a meeting project, and you're already using Teams, it's still a very good time to reiterate on your collaboration culture, because maybe you just started using Teams, you started using chat, maybe part of the period we've just been through, where a lot of people got exposed to Teams in a very quick way and didn't much think about the culture and so on. And now you're like trying to integrate those with like business system or enterprise grade systems like voice and video, and then you can then reiterate like what's good meeting culture, what's good voice culture, what's good collaboration culture within teams. It's never too late to rethink those cultures. Am I right, Martina?
Yeah, and also when I see that, and going back to the slide, you see also every single step, you have adoption, measurements, and things to do throughout the whole team's rollout plan. And adoption and change management is quite important to let users know what they can do and so on. And then you will be very successful with your team's rollout.
Yes.
And when we go in a new team rollout, so our first step is when you're new to Teams, the best way to get familiar with this is start using it right away. So just simply use it. Don't test it and don't make any dry runs. Just install it and use it. So the great thing about Teams is that you set up now will go with you in any upgrades or migrations you might to do later. So everything keeps in place. You can start, you get your stuff, and so on. And also use the steps below to set up a couple of teams, onboard a few early adopters in your organization to help you get familiar with Microsoft Teams. So my first step would be create the first teams and channels, and then that means setting it up, using your first setup teams, channels built for your experience with Teams. Bring in your early adopters to use Teams together with you and to get used to that. And then with the early adopters help, which is our step 2, we send a welcome message to them. We describe it to them. We make them familiarize with Microsoft Teams usage and what is new and what are the benefits and so on. And then you go into the usage monitoring and you collect feedbacks. This is extremely important for any organization. So collecting feedback means you make sure that your users understand what they are doing and why they are doing it, and what they like and what they don't like. And also with the early adopters, you find probably any issues you had early stage. So it could be, I have bandwidth issues, I have networking issues, or I can't connect to my Teams client, or anything else can be extremely helpful to go through with early adopters and get them ready to use Teams. And then don't forget resources to plan an organizational-wide rollout, because it's a pretty large project in the end if you look at that. So if you have set up your first teams, onboarded your early adopters, it's time to begin a rollout of teams for the rest of your organization, which can also be in a staged implementation if you want that. And then we go in the second stage with Ståle.
Yes. Migrate from Skype for Business to Teams. And what you need to be aware of is that Skype for Business Online is deprecated now. If you still have Skype for Business Online, then it's going away in a very short time for you. But most of the environments don't have Skype for Business Online anymore. What does that mean? It means the moment your user is online, then you will have Teams as the only component. But we still see organizations having Skype for Business Server. You can still have those environments. And you can still have those like in-between scenarios, such as meetings only in Teams, or maybe you only have chat and collaboration in Teams, and then do meetings and everything on Skype for Business server. And but the thing is that even if you have a hybrid environment, the moment you migrate someone online, they will only have Teams capabilities. They will do all their calling, all their meetings through Teams. So be aware of that. What I've seen though, and playing back to your previous slide, Martina, is that in the beginning of a deployment, make sure that you get the basics covered. Don't like go to advanced scenarios. It's like, yeah, you can use all these advanced tools, because then users get overwhelmed. It's a process for users as well, where they get more and more mature with the solution. So, for instance, when migrating meetings or migrating voice or moving from Skype for Business chat to collaboration in Teams and chat in Teams, try to make sure they get the basics covered, and then evolve the training as the users evolve as well.
Yeah, that's so true. And also, if you just throw it out to your users said, okay, this is the next tool I need to be comfortable with, and no one explained it to me, and then they probably won't use it because they are comfortable with their existing tools and they don't know about the new capabilities.
Yeah, so keep it simple, and make sure they like understand like how to get started with it.
Yeah, and also to give you a pro tip here, Skype for Business Online is no longer available. Also, access to the legacy admin portal is no longer available. If you're looking for that, you don't find it anymore. So everything is now converted into Microsoft Teams.
Yep.
It's a different story if you still have Skype for Business on premises. But Skype
Absolutely.
for Business Online is retired since July 21st.
Yeah, 31st this year. Yeah.
This year. It's true. So our next topic is Advisor for Teams. So Advisor for Teams walks you through your Microsoft Teams rollout. It assesses your Microsoft 365 organization environment, and it identifies the most common configurations that you may need to update or modify before you can successfully roll out Teams. So it's like an agent who helps you go into the rollout of Microsoft Teams. Advisor for Microsoft Teams creates a deployment team in Teams, which is very good because then you have channels for each workload you want to roll out, and each workload in the deployment teams comes with a comprehensive planner plan that includes all the rollout tasks for each workload. So it's really helpful to use Advisor for Teams, because if you use this planner plan, you can assign tasks to people responsible for each phase of the rollout. All your Teams members get their task already involved. And at the same time, they learn also to use Microsoft Teams by themselves and use Planner and the other apps. And every rollout task contains the guidance and resources you need to complete for completion of the tasks. And to be aware here, Advisor for Teams is part of the Teams Admin Center. So if you want to begin using Advisor for Teams, go to Planning, Teams Advisor. Advisor for Teams currently provides the following plans. As you see here, chat teams, channels, and apps, meetings and conferences, and Skype for Business upgrade. So you get a lot of help here, and you can look through the different capabilities and just have a live view on how Advisor for Teams look like. Here you see it's a team created within Microsoft Teams. I have here all my tasks, and you see you have a lot of very detailed steps which help you going through the different teams steps of your deployment. And then you also see here workload details, and you can scroll through the different items here and select one item and look at that, look at the details, and get help and support and have a lot of reading materials. So it makes you, Advisor for Teams, make it really easy for you to go through that. And then you can also get help from partners or from Microsoft Fast Track team. Ståle.
Yeah, so Microsoft Fast Track is a way for organizations to get advisory on moving or migrating or deploying Microsoft Teams. So if you are 150 seats, you can get advisory from the Fast Track team, and you can get some engineers helping you out. And if you are 500 licenses and more, you can even get migration support. So when moving to Microsoft Teams and moving to the cloud from your on-premises services or rolling out these features, you can get help from experts. And I understand that the Fast Track program is both engineers from Microsoft, but also from select partners. And you have some experience with that, Martina.
Yeah, it's also so Microsoft Fast Track is a great way to get support with persons which have experience in deployment of Microsoft Teams. And the Microsoft Fast Track support could be either done directly through Microsoft or it's done through Microsoft preferred Fast Track partners. So you see, if a Fast Track partner is assigned to your organization, he helps you in planning, deployment, adoption, and that also includes remote access to Microsoft expertise and to partner expertise. And this is a really good way to go into Microsoft Teams deployment. Also, there are a lot of resources available, and you can get deployment and user adoption material and without any extra costs here. So if you're planning your rollout path, you should consider using Fast Track in your deployment because it's really another view on your deployment plan, and this helps you avoid probably some issues or anything else.
Yeah, and we got a comment from Andrew on YouTube. Thank you, Andrew. Fast Track is a great resource, top people too. So he has experience with Fast Track. And I would say that the Microsoft 365 and Teams is a cloud service, and no one knows that better than Microsoft. And you, as the one migrating or starting to use those services, try to tap into all the available resources you have to have a successful rollout. And Fast Track it's one of those tools.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really helpful because you get the latest material and also access to a lot of experts here. So just use Fast Track and they really help you in your deployment. Our next topic today is Teams adoption. So user adoption is vital to the success of any Microsoft Teams deployment. Teams combines a wide range of different workflows, so as messaging, files, voice communication. And organization may experience significant change to business processes to efficiently collaborate and communicate with Microsoft Teams. So, and just as a business process change, end users often find that their daily routines or processes change as well. It is this change that users must positively embrace to successfully implement Teams. So don't get in that this is just another tool scenario. Get your users know how they can use Teams and get them excited about Teams usage and how they can do that. And we also need the buy-in from end users to implement Teams as their primary collaboration hub. And the Teams deployment normally will fail even if it's rolled out perfectly from a technical point of view. So everything is prepared, you have everything for them. But if the users are not ready for them, it's a great possibility to fail with the team deployment at all. So if we look at the list below, those are some high-level steps that organizations should implement when they go into Teams adoption. So those steps is, the first of all is identify key stakeholders, champions, and user profiles. I heard a lot about that. It could be business experts, ninjas, champions, whatever you name them, but you need those experts to drive Teams adoption. Also, stakeholders from the management are quite important to have them together in your team deployment rollout. And also talk to the business. IT also always needs to talk to the business to understand business needs, and then you can fit business scenarios to your team deployment in here. And try to onboard business users, champions, and IT professionals in a pilot first. So then you have all those groups together in your team scenario, and you see different views on teams, how teams can be used, and what's the best adoption strategy for them. And then if you design, launch, and manage an adoption campaign, go into the customer success kit as a starting point. It's a very good adoption campaign which includes material to create awareness, for self-help, training information, training portals, success measures, because you need also those success measures afterwards to get a good feedback in here in your adoption material. And if we go into adoption, we see also a success plan, and we see in our champion program, we can see, okay, those champions are available within the teams, the support teams, they have weekly meetings where you can ask questions, or things like provide them a standard feedback method. And I always recommend use forms for that, because then you collect the feedback directly within Microsoft Teams and you have it in here. And then collect the ideas, collect the issues and explain them in a learning portal. And then you see how that works. So if you go into your planning in Teams adoption, so the first step is we go into a getting starting program. So we do a planning of our material. We go through all the material we need also in our organization. And then we create the first teams with our project team together. And then we also look at the organizational readiness. So we look what tools are we using currently in our organization and how we can adopt them and how we can transfer them into Teams usage, for instance. And the second step is experiment. And this is normally something an IT pro doesn't want to hear, because it's, no, I'm responsible for a stable IT environment and not an experimental one. But if you go into Teams adoption, think about play around, create Teams champions, make them excited about how to use Teams. Also go into a governance quick start. We have a specific model on governance next week, and we talk through all the details here. But start with a simple governance plan in the beginning. And then if you have that, go with your early adopters and ask them and said, how would you use Teams? What is your usage scenario? What is the business requirement we can probably solve within Microsoft Teams? And then give them onboarding support all the time, because they need people which are here who can answer the questions and who are also pros in Microsoft Teams usage. And that leads us to step 3, where we go into the enablement. So that means in the enablement phase, we talk with our stakeholders, with the service strategy. So for instance, we can say, okay, we want to have 70% of all your users using Teams within the next 6 months. So define a plan with them. And then you go into awareness. Make users create a desire for Microsoft Teams, so that they get excited about that they like it, and that they want to use it. This is much easier if you go through adoption. And then also go into an ongoing improvement of Teams. So give them new apps, keep them excited about Teams usage. This is also something really important if we look at Teams adoption. So first of all, if we look at our stakeholders and champions and user profiles, from my perspective, it's really important to have executive sponsors in here, because those individuals are key leaders within the organizations. If they use Teams, others use Teams as well. Always think about it from that perspective. So their participation is really essential in driving employee adoption. They have the greatest influence on company culture, and they can actively communicate the value and benefits of new technology and business processes. So for instance, if you have someone from management who wants to have a town hall meeting, use Microsoft Teams live event to get him used to use it, and also the users to discover Teams and the capabilities you have in here in Teams. And then the second group we have here is service owners. And our service owners are individuals who are responsible for ensuring people use the service and get value from it. So those service owners in your organization know about your business goals and also know how they can realize it within Microsoft Teams. And then we have the third part, which is our IT pros and our champions. And that means we need to buy in every user across our organization. And that's sometimes a big challenge because some users are just not interested. They want to do what they have done the last couple of years. They do not want to learn something new. But with IT professionals and champions, you can go into that challenge and play an important role in the adoption of Microsoft 365. So those are the people who have the knowledge and they are committed to sharing their expertise, helping others. They are willing to provide peer coaching and assistance. And they help translate Microsoft 365 in the reality of their department or team. So they speak the language of the users. Consider that, because if you go in a communication department and throw around technical terms, they probably won't understand you. But a key user from that organization can translate that into their language and help you adopt Teams. Also, another pro tip is regular meetings. So plan regular meetings for stakeholders, keep them up to date on the progress of projects. Initiate the collaboration council within your organization to get feedback and discussions, which tools are useful, depending on your corporate culture. Also go into kind of an evergreening process where you said, okay, what is new? What comes now to Microsoft Teams and what we have here? And also, the best practice is engage with members in your organization early, tell them about Teams and create desire to use Teams in their organization and play a key role in the adoption path. And then, if we have done that and identified those roles here, it is important to understand which users we have in our organization. Do we have users who are primarily mobile, so always use mobile phones and are not sitting on a desk and using the Teams client? Do you have users who are constantly in meetings or giving presentations like we do today? And do you know which of your users have the most difficulty with your existing collaboration solution? So always identify those users as well. And then segment this user community. This will help you identify groups that are most open to change. And they are also best targets for your early business pilots. And their feedback is valuable. Understand the day in a life of a mobile worker helps you to create the business use case to using Microsoft Teams on a mobile device. And also go in those user profiles and segment them. And then we have our champions. Champions, early adopters, key users, ninjas, whatever name they have. They are really important for driving awareness, adopt and educate in your organization. So a champion is typically, it's a person who has a motivation to help others, like Microsoft MVPs are. So those are people who help the community within your organization. They're interested in new technology. They love to help others use IT in alignment with our best practices, which we have defined earlier. And it's sometimes a challenge to identify those individuals because you probably don't know who it is. And are they capable to be an extended support team that can provide essential feedback regarding your implementation plan? So the incentive for those individuals selected for this program is that it provides them with early insights into the company plans, in the company strategy, and that enables them to provide feedback to effect change in their organization. So give them early access to the newest version of team, to newest plans you have in there. Give them content which they can try out, which they can use on their daily support and evangelism throughout your organization. And then they help you to grow your adoption story. They bring life in teams, they answer questions, they support with new scenarios, and so on. So you see here, we have a lot of scenarios for our teams championships. And also there are very great resources for teams adoption tools. There is a specific link where you can look there and download a lot of material, look at adoption material from them, and also use that on a day-to-day basis. And then we go back from adoption to another exciting topic, which is Teams licensing.
Absolutely. And we actually have a question from YouTube. What would you suggest for beginners in industry when it comes to learning on how to build a proper rapport within the organizational perspective? And I'm thinking the Microsoft 365 adoption tools and the Champions program that Microsoft has is a great way to get started with succeeding within your organization. There's so many tools out there. Don't you agree, Martina?
Yes, I would agree about that. And also the reporting capabilities which are present within Microsoft 365 also help you beginning with your team's adoption scenario. So like the productivity score and so on. So you get a lot of insights into that from an organizational perspective.
Yeah, so you use the material out there, read through it. By just reading through it and familiarizing yourself with what's already done, what's already created by Microsoft, then you know like what Microsoft focuses on so that you can get started yourself.
Yeah.
All right, licensing within Teams. That's always an interesting question. And what we will provide in the following segment is guidance. These are never complete answers to your questions about licensing because they may vary based on your organization, based on your location, based on if you have a government cloud or in a specific scenario. So always ask your licensing advisor for your specific questions. But in general, though, Teams is assigned by a license. It's included within Microsoft 365 E3, E5. There are different add-on licenses added to E5, which we'll go through. But it's also available in the business SKUs, the business packages around Microsoft 365. But I always recommend, this is not team specific though, but I always recommend going through for a Microsoft 365 license, either Business Premium, E3, E5, F1, F3, because that includes the security you need as well to secure your identities, secure your devices, and secure access to Microsoft Teams. So it's all connected. But the Teams license itself is like one license, assign it, and you have access to what you need. There's a Teams free license as well to get started. So for small organizations, and it's also an opt-in license for end users, which you may want to consider to turn off so that people don't start using Teams without your administrator knowledge around that. And but no, there is a Teams free license. This is not to be confused with the consumer Teams, which is also free. This is for businesses as well. Add-on licenses for Teams. That's an interesting subject. So you have add-on licenses for both end users and devices. So let's go through them. The first one is Microsoft 365 Business Voice, and this is a collection typically assigned to in combination and add-on to Microsoft 365 Business Premium, which collects audio conferencing, phone system, and calling plan. Those are the components you need to make and receive calls and also dial out from meetings with the audio conferencing license. So let's break them down some more. The audio conferencing license is an add-on. Everyone should have that because it breaks down the technology barriers that you have so that you can dial in with your phone if you are on the road, if you are in a location with poor connection. People can call into the meeting and be part of the meeting. I have had that myself where I were going to attend a meeting, and then the second the meeting started, the power went off in my building and actually in my environment, in my location. So which meant that the internet was out. But I still had the ability to dial in. I had poor data coverage on my mobile, but I weren't able to dial in because audio conferencing was not part of that license. So it was actually super hard to notify the rest of the meeting attendees that I weren't able to participate in the meeting. I weren't able to dial in even. So I think that's a very important add-on. It's included in E5, and it's an add-on for E3. It's an add-on for Microsoft 365 Business Premium as well. And the next one is toll-free numbers. Toll-free numbers is something, a number you can add, which you can assign to audio conferencing. You can assign it to call queues and auto attendance. So when people dial in, they don't pay any minutes when dialing in. You pay for the minutes. And by doing that, you need to add something called communication credits. So communication credits is a prepaid pool of minutes that you can use if you have toll-free numbers, or that you can use if you're dialing out from an audio conferencing. Then you use communication credits. So communication credits is prepaid, and you assign it to users as a license to dip into that pool of prepaid minutes. So it's a tenant-wide pool of prepaid minutes. Phone system is the add-on license, which is included in E5, an add-on to E3, and an add-on to Microsoft 365 Business Premium. That's like the base license you need for telephony. And then you have other options, what you put on top of there. Either you have calling plans in order to get a number from Microsoft and have Microsoft provide telephony as a service. But calling plans can also be combined with Operator Connect, can be combined with direct routing, either hosted by yourself or by a partner or by a carrier. So the phone system is like the base license, and then you either choose calling plans, which gives you minutes, domestic and international, for calling, and or you can use direct routing or Operator Connect. Again, a phone system is included in E5. Calling plans is an add-on to E5 even, because that actually gives you the service hosted by Microsoft. You pay for the minutes that you get access to. Other licenses connected to Teams, I would say, is Microsoft Teams Rooms. This is a separate license that is cheaper than E3 and E5 and Business Premium, but it includes the necessary licenses to enroll a device into Intune, to have telephony, so phone system is part of that, and to, of course, have a Teams license. It does not include an Exchange license because that's not needed, because Teams rooms are typically resources within Exchange, which means that you don't need a license for that. That's still free. So, but it includes those capabilities. So you can dial out, you can sign into Teams, and you can even enroll the device into Intune, because these are typically Windows-based devices or Android-based devices. There are actually two flavors of a Teams Rooms license. You have like the basic one, and then you have the premium one. The difference between those two is that the premium one is where Microsoft has a service that monitors your Teams Room. So it has nothing to do with capabilities for the Teams Rooms, but it has with management. So the premium license costs some extra per room, per license, but then you have Microsoft giving you constant advisory on how to improve your environment. If something's happened with a device, they try to fix it on their side, but if it's a hardware issue, they will advise you, hey, this room, you need to go and replug the USB device or the audio device because it's not plugged in anymore. So those are the two flavors of the Teams Rooms license. Then we have the Common Area Phone license. Common Area Phone license is for those shared devices that you have in shared spaces where you're not logging on to the device with the specific users. These are typically IP phones. So you have like a reception area, or you have an area where multiple users have the ability to grab the phone and dial a number. That they're not logged in as themselves. So we create a common area phone user, and we assign this license to it because it has the Teams license, it has the phone system license. And the major difference between Teams Rooms and Common Area Phone is that the Common Area Phone does not have Intune license, so it doesn't have enrollment rights. So if that is actually a big part of your deployment, what we actually recommend is, even for those shared Teams phone devices, we still do Teams Rooms licenses because it includes the Intune license. But it depends on your security scheme. Advanced Communication is a new add-on license where you will be able to see so the new real-time analytics capability will be in there, and which is still in preview and still open for everyone. And then you might ask, what is like real-time analytics? That sounds very interesting. What can we do with that? And for that, we can real-time monitor a call for call quality. That's what it is. So if you have a high-stake call, that's what you will do. And also you can customize the lobby with the Advanced Communication. So if you are doing webinars and so on, you get lobby customization part of the Advanced Communication license. So next,
you see, licensing is quite easy.
Absolutely, super easy. And again, these are the general in the general information around licensing. Always work with your licensing partner to get like the proper pricing around this, what kind of add-ons you can add, but make sure that you have planned for the proper licenses when rolling out Teams.
Yeah, exactly. Also,
yeah,
go on.
No, go on, Martina.
So also, if you think about licensing for governance, security, and compliance features, please keep in mind that those licenses might be add-ons to your Microsoft Teams licensing capabilities. So they come probably with the security suite or the compliance suite and so on.
Yeah, for instance, for Microsoft 365 E3, you need to add like the security add-on in order to get like the full like safe links, safe attachments, stuff like that to your Teams as well. So those are different licenses again, but they connect to Teams, but it's like not the Teams core service.
Yeah, and then we have, if we look at that and guest access, this is quite easy because Teams doesn't restrict the numbers of guests you can add to them. However, the total number of guests that can be added to your tenant may be restricted by the paid features of Azure AD. But you can look at that and also decide how you can do that. And then we are moving to our last section, and this is deploying the Microsoft Teams client. And this is also something where you have to consider mobile devices and so on. So Ståle, our last section for the last 5 minutes. Okay, so let me go on with the Microsoft Teams client. If we look here, is our Teams desktop clients provide real-time communication support. So you can have Teams desktop clients on Windows 8 or 8.1 or later, also on Windows Server on 32-bit and 64-bit versions. Also, macOS is here, so 3 most recent versions of macOS are supported by Microsoft, and then we have also a Linux client coming up to use Microsoft Teams desktop client. And as a team administrator, you can choose your preferred method to distribute the installation to which files the computers in your organization. For example, you can use Microsoft Endpoint Config Manager for Windows operating system or Jump Pro for Mac OS. And there are several ways for deploy your Teams desktop clients. Also, you can use MSI files, apps for enterprise installer to use it there, or you can use a standalone installer for user installation. Also, the Teams desktop client on the Windows OS doesn't require elevated permissions, and every user can install the client by themselves. And on macOS systems, you need administrative permissions. So how does it look like? You see here, this is the desktop client which is deployed on your machine, and you can start using it from here. And then we have our Windows operating system. So the installation provides downloadable installers for 32-bit, 64-bit architecture, and you also see that the client is deployed in the app data folder located in each user's profile. So deploying to the local user profile allows the client to be installed without elevated rights. So this is very important. And the client requires .NET Framework 4.5. We just had the launch of .NET 6. And the Teams installer will offer to install it if you don't have it. And then from a Mac perspective, you can install Teams by using a package installation file for your Mac OS computers. Administrative access is required to install the Mac client. And from the Teams download page under Mac, select download, and then follow the installation wizard to complete the installation. And then you see Teams will also be installed to the applications folder, and the installation is machine-wide. So you see, it's also quite easy to install it from the Mac operating system. And then we also have Linux operating systems. So we can install Linux packages, and it will automatically install the package repository. So you see the signing key to enable auto-updating using System Package Manager is installed automatically. So however, you can download it as well, and then Microsoft Teams client ships monthly, and the repository, if it was installed correctly, the System Package Manager should handle auto-updating in the same way as other packages on the system. So you see, you will get also a very good experience if you're working on Linux. And then we look at how we can install it, so download it, and and just use it from that. And you also see here, change the Teams file name, you downloaded it, and just install it on your Linux machine if you will. Then one of the next points would be virtual desktop infrastructure, and you can install it from here as well. And to install it on a virtual desktop, go and deploy the Teams desktop to your VDE per machine installation and per user installation in your MSI package. And you see here, we have quite of instructions to use to install it in a 32-bit version or a 64-bit version. Mobile clients, to finalize that, is we have Android and iOS mobile clients. You can deploy through your mobile, through the Apple App Store, through Google Play, or you can also have a centralized deployment if you're using Microsoft Intune. For instance, you can force it up in there, and then you see also we have our Teams web clients right here. So to wrap it up, what we can do here is in our summary, what we learned today, we went through Teams admin roles, we described the admin roles, and we went into the Teams clients, and hope you enjoyed today's Learn Live session, and hope to see you next week when we go through governance and adoption again. Thank you, and see you next week. Bye.